about one mistake people can make is not contributing and instead focusing on college tuition. But what are some of the other mistakes that you've seen? You've been practicing for how many years?
Oh my goodness, 21 years.
So what are some of those? And you've seen a lot of mistakes in 21
Yeah, I've
years.
seen a
But,
lot of
so,
mistakes.
so what kind of mistake? What are the most common mistakes you see people make when it comes to 401ks?
So, it's interesting, Rodney. Retirement planning has changed so much over the years. In my industry, we've kind of stuck on the same model that, you do the same thing and it's going to work. And retirement is a lot different. So one of the things that I tell people, your 401k should not be your only mechanism for saving for retirement. Um, but looking at the 401k plan, because there's some great things about it. One is to make sure that you're contributing, a amount that at least covers the match that your employer provides. So for an example, if your employer provides a 5% match, you need to contribute at least 5% or whatever that number is to make sure you're getting that full match, because if not, you're leaving money on the table. Another thing to take a look at, and a mistake that I see people make, is everyone kind of contributes to the pre-tax option because they want the tax deduction now. But what they don't understand is, that money, you're now accumulating a large sum of money that in retirement is all taxable. And the thought used to be that tax rates would go down, or you would pay less in taxes in retirement. We're not seeing that now with today's situation and today's clients. So taking a look at, most plans offer what's called a Roth option. That should be something that a lot of people should take a look at, so that you do have a bucket of money that is considered tax-free or potentially tax-free to draw from in retirement. And the biggest thing is your 401k should not be your personal bank or savings account, which means, you should not be going in every time there's a little small emergency. You should not be going in, taking money out. You definitely want to look at, trying to have that money grow. And more importantly, if you are leaving different companies, you want to take your money with you so you can keep track of it. Because a lot of times companies will change providers, and different things will change, and people sometimes lose track of the money or have a hard time really managing their investments if they have 5 or 6 different plans from previous employers.
Okay, so let's go back a minute. Can you explain briefly the difference between a traditional 401k or IRA and a Roth in terms of the tax advantages?
Okay, so the traditional option, sure.
Okay.
So the traditional option, when we look at that, so let's take an example. Somebody makes $100,000 per year, and they put in $10,000 in the traditional or the pre-tax option in their 401k plan. That reduces their taxable income by $10,000. So now they're only paying income taxes on essentially $90,000 of income. So you get the upfront tax break. The caveat to that is that money's been tax deferred, it's growing tax deferred. When you go to withdraw that money in retirement to live off of or to supplement your income, all of that money is now taxable income to you. So you pay the taxes when you take the money out. The Roth option, same scenario, you make $100,000, you put $10,000 into the Roth option. Your taxable income is still $100,000. So it does not give you that immediate upfront tax break. The money still grows tax deferred, but what happens at retirement, if all the conditions are met, that money comes out tax free. So that's the big difference, whether you want to get the tax break now or if you want to pay the taxes now and then have a bucket of money or a pot of money available to you that is tax free in retirement.
Okay, and what do you, because I get asked often, what percentage of my money should go in the traditional 401k and what percentage should go in a Roth? How do you answer that?
So what I tell people is, first of all, you need to talk to your tax advisor and see what your tax situation is, because everybody has a different tax situation. Usually what you say is, if you're in a situation where you get a huge refund each year after you file your taxes, then you can shift more money from the traditional to the Roth option. If you're in a situation where you owe or you break even every year, then you do want to just talk to your tax provider and have them run the numbers to see what is the ideal percentage for you. Because you don't want to be in a situation where you make a change and it hurts you at the end of the year.
Okay, so let's move on to the final topic I wanted to talk to you about, and that's one. There are so many cases where husbands and wives don't talk uh, about finances and
Or anything.
or anything, right? um, and there are actually cases where only one of them talks to a financial advisor.
Yes.
So say why don't husbands and wives communicate about finances? I'm asking you as your psychologist part of financial planning now.
And somebody who's been married 16 years.
But whose wife is also an accountant. So
Yes.
um, and sort of tagged onto that, how involved should your children be in when it comes? I mean, how much do you want to tell you? So, it's African Americans especially keep secret. They don't want their
Yes.
children to know
Yes. Yes.
how much they make. But I've talked to some people who say, or, actually I talked to a business owner who said her mother basically made her sit down and write the checks and showed her how much she made. So,
Yeah.
so she knew not to ask for anything because she knew that, right? So let's start with communications. How important it is for spouses to discuss and talk about finances and financial planning.
It's very important. So I will say this, like I said, as a husband, my wife and I have been married. It'll be 16 years in June. We have two sons. And like I said, Leah, she's a CPA. It's very important to talk about finances, but it's one of the hardest topics for most people to talk about, because, you know, there's this, we talk about financial literacy a lot. And, being able to recognize everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. So there's one spouse who might handle a lot of the finances because that's their particular strength. They're gifted in that. And the other spouse doesn't. But what we see happens a lot, if something happens to that spouse that was handling all the finances, and the spouse that survives is now left in the dark, has no idea where anything is, how to handle anything, what the financial situation is. That's a devastating experience. You're going through a loss, you're going through a mourning process, and then trying to figure out, okay, where are the bills, which bills were paid, how are they paid from which account. It's a nightmare. And I've seen spouses have to go through that. I've seen spouses pull out a yellow sheet of paper, like this is all he left. This was his accounting. This was her accounting. This is how they paid the bills. I have no idea where anything is. So it's very important to at least have that conversation about what's going on with the money, because it helps financially if something happens, and it just helps for a healthy marriage to have that communication. Bringing in the kids, that is something that's important because it really teaches them financial literacy and how to handle their finances. One of the big things in this country, especially the African American community, is the lack of financial literacy or knowledge. And it is something that we don't talk about a lot. But having kids involved in the family discussions and the budget meetings, having them say, okay, this is how much money we bring in. This is how much goes out to the bills. This is what was left over. So it brings things in context because, a lot of kids, they just know they ask for something and it appears. They don't know how it appears, what the parents have to do to get it. And so it starts to bring that responsibility for them to say, hey, there's not an infinite pot of money. you know, this is how we provide for the family, and these are things that you should take as you're looking at your family and getting older. These are some of the conversations of ways you should have in money. So definitely those conversations, Rodney, are extremely important.
Okay.